Hello, my dear children. Now, let's learn more from the chapter on properties of water. Please open to page number 74. Now, all objects, including water, are made up of very tiny particles called molecules. In some objects, the molecules are very tightly packed, whereas in others they are loosely packed. This forms the density of an object. Objects in which molecules are tightly packed have higher density than water, and so they sink in water. For example, comb, keys, stones, and scissors sink in water. Objects in which molecules are loosely packed have lower density than water, so they float on water. For example, wooden logs, ball, floating tube, and several plastic objects float on water. Hence, it is density of an object decides whether it will float or sink in water. Now, objects that float and sink in water. All objects, including water, are made up of very tiny particles called molecules. In some objects, molecules are tightly packed, whereas in others, they are loosely packed. This forms the density of an object. Now, children, see the picture given. The one with many dots placed closely is denser than the one which are not closely placed. You can see the first diagram where the small rounded structure, which we can call as molecules, are very close to each other. So we say that this one is more denser. Now move to second picture. The second picture is having the dots or molecules which are far from each other. Hence we say it is less dense. For example, wooden logs, ball, and several plastic objects float on water. Hence it is the density of an object that decides whether it will float or sink in water. Now, what do you mean by particles, molecules, and density? So, children, do you have any idea about it? Molecules are particles combined to make an object. So, what is density now? Density tells us how tightly packed any particle is or matter is. Now, if you see the figure given over here, the number of smileys in the first one is pretty less. In the second one, it is more, but not so much as in the third one. So, we can say it is starting from less dense, it is a little bit more dense than the last one, which is denser than both of them. Now, let us take group of marbles as molecules of which different things are made of. When they are arranged very close to each other, like in metal spoon, it becomes heavy, or we can say this spoon is denser than the marbles or molecules are not close to each other. They are lighter, that means not so heavy. We can say this plastic spoon is not so dense. Now, let us do one experiment. We will take few objects to find out what happens. Okay? So, before we begin this activity, we will put things into the water gently without drop. We will not drop. There will be some children who will like to enjoy the splash effect, but we will put things gently. First, we will take a stone. It sinks. Next is foam block. It floats. Next we will take a spoon. It sinks. Now let's take a plastic block. It floats. Now let's take a giant paper clip. It sinks. Next we are going to use a pencil. Let's see what happens. It floats on water. Yes. So these were few things we used to check what happens. So whatever objects sank in water are more dense because the molecules are tightly packed in those objects, and whatever objects floated on water are less dense as the molecules are loosely packed in those objects.